Hi there. Let's get started. This is an original story from Private Revenge Family, and it took a turn that no one in that room was prepared for. Let's get into it. The invitation said 6 o'clock. I arrived at 6:15 because showing up on time to my mother-in-law's house meant 15 extra minutes of being evaluated before the real guests arrived. The driveway was already packed. Black sedans, a white Range Rover, a Porsche that probably belonged to my brother-in-law. I parked my 10-year-old Honda at the far end near the gardener's shed where it wouldn't offend anyone's line of sight. My husband Marcus was already inside. He'd driven up the night before to help his mother prepare. That was the word he used, prepare. What it actually meant was stand in her kitchen, agreeing with everything she said while she reminded him how lucky he was to have grown up in a house like this. I checked my reflection in the rearview mirror. Clean face, hair pulled back. Small earrings my grandmother gave me before she passed. Nothing flashy. Nothing trying too hard. I'd learned a long time ago that trying too hard in this family was a trap. If I dressed up, I was overcompensating. If I dressed down, I had no class. The only way to survive was to be invisible. And even that annoyed them. The front door was open. Music drifted out. Something classical. Something chosen to make people feel cultured without actually requiring them to listen. I stepped inside, and the smell hit me first. Lilies. My mother-in-law always ordered lilies for events. She said roses were common. The house was enormous. Not warm enormous, like a place where kids had run through hallways and left marks on the walls. Cold enormous. The kind of space that existed to make visitors feel smaller. Every surface was polished, every corner styled, every photograph on the mantel professionally lit and carefully curated to tell a story about a family that didn't actually exist. I found Marcus near the kitchen island, adjusting napkin folds like his life depended on it. He looked up when I walked in and gave me that smile. The one that meant please don't start anything tonight. Hey, I said. You're late, he replied, but his voice was soft, not angry, nervous. His mother made him nervous. That was the thing no one talked about. Before I could answer, she appeared. My mother-in-law, Diane. 62 years old, perfectly preserved, voice like a blade wrapped in silk. She didn't walk into rooms. She occupied them. Oh good, she said, scanning me head to toe. You made it. She didn't hug me. She hadn't hugged me since the wedding, and even that one was for the photographer. I brought the wine you asked for, I said, holding up the bag. She took it without looking at the label and handed it to someone behind her. Put that in the back, she said. We're serving the Opus 1 tonight. She turned to me and lowered her voice just enough to sound confidential. Listen, tonight is important. Richard's colleagues are here. People who matter. I need you to help with the serving. We're short-staffed. Richard was my father-in-law, retired federal judge. The kind of man whose silence carried more weight than most people's speeches. He didn't dislike me the way Diane did. He just didn't see me at all. I looked at Marcus. He looked at his napkins. Sure, I said. I'll help. Diane smiled. The satisfied kind. Not grateful. Confirmed. She handed me a black apron. Not from a drawer. From a hook near the staff entrance. She'd planned this. I tied it on. Muscle memory from years of doing whatever kept the peace. My hands knew the knot before my brain approved it. The first guests arrived in clusters. Men in suits that cost more than my car. Women in dresses that cost more than my monthly rent. Handshakes, kisses on cheeks, laughter that echoed off marble like it had been rehearsed. I carried trays, poured champagne, refilled water glasses before anyone had to ask. Invisible and efficient. The combination that makes wealthy people comfortable. Marcus's brother Kyle showed up with his wife Tiffany. Kyle was loud, tall, and had the kind of confidence that comes from never being told no. He worked in venture capital, which mostly meant he talked about money in rooms full of people who already had it. Tiffany was an interior designer. Her Instagram had more followers than some news channels. Kyle spotted me behind the bar and grinned. There she is, he said, elbowing a guest. Our little Florence Nightingale. A few people chuckled. I smiled. Not because it was funny, but because reacting would have cost more than ignoring it. Tiffany leaned over the counter. Still doing the hospital thing? She asked like she was asking about a hobby I should have outgrown. Still doing it, I said. She tilted her head. You know, you could make real money if you got into health content. Wellness influencing is huge right now. I know a girl who quit nursing and now makes 6 figures selling supplements. I'll keep that in mind, I said. She nodded, already bored, and drifted toward the living room with her phone raised, capturing the ambiance. Diane reappeared at my side. Don't chat with the guests, she said quietly. Just serve. I don't want people getting confused about who you are. I set down a glass and looked at her. Who am I? I asked. She blinked. You know what I mean. I did. That was the problem. Dinner was formal. Long table, white linens, place cards written in calligraphy. I wasn't at the table. I was behind it, pouring wine, clearing plates, moving between courses like a shadow that knew its place. Richard sat at the head, dignified and distant. Diane sat opposite, orchestrating conversation with the precision of a conductor. Kyle held court at his end, telling stories about deals and disruptions. Tiffany documented everything. Marcus sat between his parents, smiling at the right moments, laughing when expected. My place card didn't exist. I hadn't expected one. Halfway through the main course, Diane raised her glass. I want to thank everyone for being here tonight, she said. This dinner celebrates family, success, and the values that built this house. She looked at Kyle, my son, the visionary. Kyle lifted his glass with a grin. She looked at Marcus, my loyal boy, always by my side. Marcus nodded, cheeks slightly red. She looked at Tiffany. And Tiffany, who turned her talent into an empire. She didn't look at me. I was holding a breadbasket 6 feet away. My hands didn't shake. I trained them not to. A guest at the far end asked Marcus what I did. He hesitated. She's in healthcare, he said carefully. She works at a hospital. Diane cut in immediately. She's a nurse, she said, smiling. We're very proud of her. Bedpans and blood pressure. Someone has to do it. Polite laughter rippled across the table. Kyle winked at me. I set the bread down and returned to the kitchen. The caterer looked at me with something close to sympathy. Rough crowd, she said. I shrugged. They're consistent. I stood at the sink for a moment, running water over my hands even though they weren't dirty. The sound helped. White noise for the brain. I'd learned that trick in a place very different from this kitchen. Later, as dessert was served, Diane made another announcement. I almost forgot, she said, voice rising with practiced excitement. We have a special guest arriving shortly, a colleague of Richard's, someone very distinguished. Richard shifted in his seat. He hadn't been told to expect drama with his creme brulee. Who is it? Kyle asked. Diane leaned forward. Senator Catherine Marshall. The table went quiet. Not polite quiet. Impressed quiet. Senator Marshall was a household name. Chair of the Armed Services Committee. Former JAG officer. The kind of woman whose presence could make or break a career in Washington. Tiffany immediately checked her hair and her phone camera. Kyle straightened his jacket. Marcus glanced toward the kitchen, toward me, then quickly away. Diane pointed at me without looking. Make sure the bar is stocked, and change your apron. That one has a stain. I looked down. A small spot of wine, barely visible. But presentation mattered more than people in this house. I changed the apron and restocked the bar. Crystal glasses, lined up, labels facing out. Everything precise. When the moment is right, you know. The room shifted before anyone spoke. Voices thinned. Posture changed. People stood a little taller, smiled a little wider. The senator walked in without an entourage. Just one aide, a woman with a tablet and calm eyes who stood near the door and observed. Senator Marshall was in her early 60s. Silver-haired, slim build, posture that said military before her mouth opened. Diane rushed forward. Senator Marshall, what an honor. The senator smiled, polite, measured. Thank you for having me, Diane. She shook Richard's hand with both of hers. Judge, always a pleasure. Richard nodded, the closest thing to warmth I'd ever seen from him. Kyle practically levitated toward them. Senator, Kyle Parker. I run a fund focused on defense-adjacent technology. I'd love 5 minutes of your time. The senator nodded once, non-committal. Tiffany hovered nearby, phone angled for a candid shot that was anything but. Marcus stood to the side, hands in his pockets, waiting to be noticed. Diane guided the senator toward the best chair. Can I get you something to drink? Just water, the senator said. No ice. Diane snapped her fingers toward the bar. I filled a glass. No ice. Carried it over on a small tray. Set it down without a sound. The senator looked up at me, her eyes paused. Not long, just a beat longer than casual. Thank you, she said. You're welcome, I replied. Diane stepped between us. She's just helping out. Family. The senator nodded slowly and took a sip. Conversation resumed. Kyle pitched his fund. Diane name-dropped institutions. Richard offered quiet observations about judicial philosophy. The senator listened, asked sharp questions, gave little away. I returned to the bar. Poured, wiped, organized. The work was mindless. That was the point. It freed up everything else. About 30 minutes in, I noticed something. Richard's hand was trembling. Not visibly to most people, but I caught it when he reached for his glass. His grip was off. His left arm wasn't moving the way it had been at the start of the evening. His speech had slowed, slightly slurred on the last few words. Not drunk. Something else. I set down the bottle I was holding and watched him. Closely. He laughed at something Kyle said, but the laugh was late. Half a second behind where it should have been. His left eyelid drooped. Just barely. My chest tightened. Not panic. Recognition. I moved from behind the bar. Diane saw me and frowned. What are you doing? I walked straight to Richard. I didn't run. Running causes panic. Panic wastes time. Richard, I said, kneeling beside his chair. Can you smile for me? He looked confused. What? Smile. Both sides. He tried. The left side of his face didn't move. The table went quiet. Diane stood up. What are you doing? Stop touching him. I ignored her. Richard, raise both arms for me. Straight out. He lifted his right arm. His left stayed on the table. Diane grabbed my shoulder. I said stop. You're embarrassing him. I looked up at her. Call 911 right now. He's having a stroke. The word hit the room like a gunshot. A stroke? Kyle said, standing. Richard tried to speak. His words came out tangled, jumbled syllables. His eyes widened with the kind of fear that comes from realizing your own body is betraying you. Now, I said to the room, someone call now. The senator's aide already had her phone out, already dialing. I turned Richard's chair so he was facing me fully. I loosened his tie, unbuttoned his collar, checked his pulse, rapid, irregular. Richard, I said, look at me. You're going to be okay. I need you to stay awake and stay still. Diane was shaking. This can't be happening. Richard. Ma'am, I need you to step back, I said. My voice was calm, not cold, controlled. Calm travels. She didn't move. Kyle pulled her gently away. She fought him for a second, then collapsed into his arms. What time did the symptoms start? I asked Marcus. He stared at me blankly. I don't know. Think. When did you last see him use his left hand normally? Marcus blinked. Maybe 20 minutes ago? He reached for the salt. I looked at my watch. Noted the time. That window mattered. Every minute mattered. I turned to the senator's aide. Tell the dispatcher suspected acute ischemic stroke, left-sided weakness, facial droop, speech impairment. Symptom onset approximately 20 minutes ago. We need a stroke team on standby at the nearest comprehensive stroke center. The aide relayed the information without hesitation. She didn't question me. People who recognize training don't question it. Kyle stared. How do you know all that? Diane choked out a breath. She's a nurse. She reads things online. The senator stood from her chair. She hadn't panicked. She'd been watching. Closely. I elevated Richard's head slightly, kept talking to him. Short sentences, clear instructions. Stay with me, Richard. Keep your eyes open. Help is coming. His right hand found mine. He squeezed. Not strong, but deliberate. 5 minutes. The ambulance was 5 minutes out. I counted the time in breaths, in pulse checks, in watching his pupils respond to light from my phone flashlight. When the paramedics arrived, I gave the handoff clean and fast. 74-year-old male. Acute onset left hemiparesis, facial asymmetry, expressive aphasia. Symptom onset approximately 25 minutes ago. No known allergies. Currently on lisinopril and low-dose aspirin per his medicine cabinet. GCS is 13. NISIS estimate around 12 to 14. The lead paramedic looked at me, the way people look when they're recalibrating. Are you the attending? He asked. His daughter-in-law, I said. They loaded Richard onto the stretcher. Diane tried to climb in with him. They let her. The ambulance pulled away, sirens splitting the night. The house was silent, glasses half full, plates half cleared. A room full of important people standing around doing nothing, because nothing in their training had prepared them for this. Kyle ran his hand through his hair. Is he going to be okay? If they get him to the cath lab within the window, his chances are good, I said. The early identification helps. Tiffany whispered to Kyle. How did she know all that? Kyle shook his head. The senator walked toward me. Slow, deliberate. The room watched. She stopped 2 feet away, looked at my hands, then my face. That wasn't nursing, she said. I didn't respond. She studied me another moment. Parker, she said. Your name is Parker now, but that wasn't always your name. I held her gaze. I sat on the Armed Services Committee when they reviewed the incident reports from Camp Resolute, she said. Her voice carried through the room without rising. Forward surgical team. Multiple casualties. Arterial bleeds in field conditions. The team leader performed 17 consecutive procedures over 36 hours without losing a single patient. The room was dead silent. She tilted her head. Major Cassandra Reeves. Now Dr. Cassandra Parker. I didn't confirm it. I didn't need to. Marcus stepped forward. His face was white. Cass, he whispered. What is she talking about? The senator continued. Quietly. Precisely. I read your file 3 years ago when we reviewed the Distinguished Service Medal nominations. You were the youngest combat surgeon deployed to that region. Your team saved 41 lives in conditions that would have overwhelmed most fully equipped trauma centers. Kyle's mouth was open. No sound came out. Tiffany lowered her phone for the first time all evening. The senator reached out and took my hand. Not to shake it. She held it. The way you hold something valuable. This hand, she said, has done more in a single night under fire than most people in this room will accomplish in a lifetime. I know because I authorized the report that said so. She released my hand and turned to the room. You called her a nurse, she said. Not to anyone specifically, but the sentence landed on everyone. You handed her an apron and asked her to pour drinks. She didn't correct you. She never does. That's discipline. That's character. And frankly, that's more restraint than anyone in this room deserves. No one moved. Marcus walked toward me. His eyes were red. Why didn't you tell them? I looked at him. The man I loved. The man who had stood by while his mother handed me an apron, and his brother called me Florence Nightingale. I tried, I said. You told me not to make waves. That sentence broke something in his face. The kind of break that doesn't heal with a quick apology. Kyle found his voice. We didn't know. How were we supposed to know? The senator answered before I could. You could have asked. In 3 years, did anyone in this family once ask her about her career? Her service? What she did before she married into your name? Silence. The senator's aide stepped forward quietly. Senator, the car is ready. The senator nodded. She looked at me one last time. If you ever need anything, she said, call my office directly. She handed me a card. Not a business card. A personal one. Handwritten number. Thank you, I said. She didn't say goodbye to anyone else. She walked out. The door closed behind her, and the sound echoed through the house like a verdict. I untied the apron, folded it, set it on the counter. Marcus reached for my arm. Cass, please. We can fix this. Just come with me to the hospital. Mom needs us. I looked at him. Your mother needs a lot of things. Knowing who I am has never been one of them. That's not fair, he said. I've been standing in this house for 3 years being introduced as the nurse, I said. I corrected it once. Your mother laughed. I corrected it twice. She changed the subject. The third time, you pulled me aside and asked me to let it go because it wasn't worth the fight. He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Kyle stepped forward. Look, we were wrong. We get it. But Dad's in the hospital, and this isn't the time. I raised my hand, and he stopped. Not because of volume, because of weight. Your father is in good hands, I said. I made sure of that. That's what I do. I save people who don't know they need saving, even when they don't think I'm qualified. I picked up my bag from behind the bar, the one I'd tucked away when I arrived, out of sight, where Diane preferred me. Inside that bag, folded into a side pocket, was a letter I'd carried for 2 months. An offer. Chief of trauma surgery at one of the top hospitals in the country. I'd been waiting for the right time to tell Marcus, waiting for a moment when his family might listen. That moment was never going to come. I understood that now. I walked toward the door. Marcus followed me. Where are you going? He asked. Home, I said. "This is your home," he said weakly. I stopped, turned, looked at the polished floors, the curated photographs, the lilies that cost more than kindness. "No," I said. "This is a house where I wore an apron so your mother could feel important. Home is where I don't have to pretend I'm less than I am." He reached for me. "Please." I removed his hand, gently, not angry, clear. "I love you," I said. "But I can't keep shrinking so your family doesn't have to grow." His eyes filled. "Cass." I walked out. The night air was cold. Clean. Honest. My Honda sat where I'd parked it, next to the gardener's shed. Out of sight, where the family preferred things that didn't match their image. I got in, started the engine, and pulled out of the driveway. In the rearview mirror, the house got smaller, the lights stayed on, the music had stopped. Marcus stood in the doorway. Not following, not quite understanding yet. That was okay. Understanding takes time. Sometimes more time than a marriage can hold. I drove in silence for a while. No radio, no phone, just the hum of the engine and the rhythm of streetlights passing overhead. My phone buzzed. A message from Marcus. "Please come to the hospital. Mom's asking for you." I read it once, then set the phone face down on the passenger seat. Diane wasn't asking for me. She was asking for the version of me she'd built in her head. The helpful one, the quiet one, the one who poured wine and didn't correct anyone when they got the story wrong. That version was useful. That version was safe. But that version wasn't me. Here's the thing about being underestimated. At first, it stings. Then it frustrates. Then, somewhere along the way, it becomes invisible. You stop noticing because they stop pretending. The insults get smaller, quieter, folded into jokes and introductions and offhand comments that everyone laughs at because no one wants to be the person who makes things awkward. And you adjust. You learn which rooms require you to be smaller. You learn which conversations to step out of. You learn to carry your achievements quietly because displaying them makes someone else uncomfortable. You don't stop being capable. You stop showing it. And the dangerous part is how natural that becomes. For 3 years, I'd walked into that house and walked out with less of myself each time. Not because they took it. Because I handed it over, piece by piece. In the name of keeping peace with people who were never at war, they were just comfortable. And my silence made them more so. When I corrected Diane the first time, when I told her I was a surgeon, not a nurse, she'd laughed and said, "Oh honey, you don't need to impress us." Marcus had squeezed my hand under the table. A signal I read clearly. Drop it. So I dropped it. And every time I dropped it, the story got more fixed. The nurse. The helper. The sweet girl Marcus married who didn't quite fit the family's trajectory, but was nice enough to keep around. That story wasn't ignorance. It was architecture. They built it on purpose, reinforced it on purpose, and got angry when reality tried to renovate. People who benefit from underestimating you don't want information. They want compliance. Your resume doesn't matter. Your credentials don't matter. What matters is that you keep the version of yourself that makes them comfortable. The moment you stop cooperating, the structure shakes. That's why Diane panicked when I knelt beside Richard. Not because she doubted medicine. Because she doubted the character she'd written for me. Nurses kneel beside patients. Surgeons take command. And the person she'd assigned to the background wasn't supposed to take command. That disruption terrified her more than the stroke. I know that sounds harsh, but when someone is more upset about being wrong than about their husband's health, you learn where their priorities actually live. Driving home that night, I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel vindicated. I felt tired. The specific kind of tired that comes from years of holding yourself together in rooms that were designed to pull you apart. But underneath the exhaustion, there was something else. Clarity. The kind that doesn't ask permission. I thought about the letter in my bag, the job offer. Chief of Trauma Surgery, a position I'd earned through years of training, deployment, sleepless nights, and decisions that carried life or death weight. I'd hesitated to accept it because the hospital was across the country. Because it would mean asking Marcus to choose. Because some part of me still believed that if I just waited long enough, his family would see me. That belief died on a polished floor next to a 74-year-old man whose family didn't know the person saving him was the most qualified person in the room. Some beliefs need to die for better ones to breathe. The next morning, I called the hospital and accepted the position. Marcus called 14 times. I answered on the 15th. "Dad's stable," he said. "They got the clot in time. The doctors said early identification saved him. Because of you. I'm glad, I said, and I meant it. There was a pause, the kind that holds everything unsaid. Mom wants to apologize, he said. No, she doesn't, I replied. She wants things to go back to normal. Another pause. Longer. Where are you? He asked. I'm home, I said. Packing. Packing? His voice cracked. I took the job, Marcus. The one in Virginia. Silence. I could hear him breathing. Processing. You didn't even talk to me about it, he said. I talked to you about it 4 months ago, I said. You told me it wasn't the right time, that your mother would be upset. This is different now. Is it? I asked. Or is it just louder? He didn't answer. Because the honest answer wasn't the one he wanted to give. Here's the thing about families that operate on hierarchy. They don't adjust when they're proven wrong. They renegotiate. They find new ways to absorb the disruption without actually changing the structure. Diane wouldn't suddenly respect me because a senator validated my career. She'd find a way to reframe it, to own it, to make it part of her story. My daughter-in-law, the surgeon, as if she'd been cheering from the sidelines all along. And Marcus, the man I loved, would let her. Because confronting his mother required a kind of courage he'd never been asked to develop. Not because he was weak. Because the system worked for him. Systems don't change from the inside when the people inside are comfortable. I didn't leave to punish anyone. I left because I finally understood something that had taken me far too long to see. The people who truly value you don't require a crisis to notice your worth. They don't need a senator to confirm what they should have already known. And if respect only arrives after someone powerful enters the room and forces it into existence, it was never respect. It was calculation. Over the following weeks, things shifted. Not dramatically. Quietly. Richard recovered. Slowly, with therapy and medication, he regained most of his mobility. He sent me a letter, handwritten. Shaky, but deliberate. 3 words. Thank you, Cassandra. It was the first time he'd ever used my full name. Diane sent nothing. Marcus said she cried. I believed him. But tears aren't the same as change. And apologies that arrive only after consequences aren't apologies. They're negotiations. Kyle called once. Awkward and overly cheerful. Hey, so, Senator Marshall's office reached out to me. They're interested in a defense tech initiative, and they mentioned your name. Could you maybe put in a word? I let the silence sit long enough for him to hear himself. No, I said. He stammered. Right. Yeah, no, I get it. Marcus came to Virginia once. We sat across from each other at a cafe near the hospital. He looked tired, not from travel. From reckoning. I didn't know, he said. You did, I replied. You just didn't act. He stared into his coffee. I thought I was protecting you. You were protecting your comfort, I said. There's a difference. He didn't argue. That was new. We talked for a long time. Not about us. About patterns. About the slow, quiet erosion that happens when someone you love keeps asking you to be less so someone else can feel like more. He didn't ask me to come back. I think he knew the answer. At the hospital, my first week was unremarkable in the best possible way. No one handed me an apron. No one asked me to pour drinks. When I walked into the trauma bay, the team looked at me the way I'd spent 3 years wishing someone at that dinner table would. Like I belonged. I operated. I led. I taught residents who were nervous and sharp and hungry to learn. I made decisions that carried weight, and no one flinched when I gave an order. That wasn't power. That was alignment. And here's the thing I wish someone had told me years ago. You don't owe access to people who only see your value when someone else points it out. You don't owe explanations to people who weren't listening the first 3 times. And you absolutely don't owe your presence to rooms that require you to be smaller. Walking away doesn't mean you stopped caring. It means you started caring about the right person. Yourself. So here's the question I want to leave you with. And take your time with it. Don't answer defensively. Answer honestly. In your life right now, where are you wearing an apron you didn't choose? Who handed it to you? And what would happen if you folded it up, set it on the counter, and walked out the door? Not in anger. Not to prove a point. Just because you finally decided that being seen matters more than being needed. Think about it. Share your thoughts in the comments. And if stories about quiet strength, boundaries, and the courage it takes to stop shrinking, subscribe to Private Revenge Family. There's a lot more to talk about. Final note. This story is a work of fiction created for dramatic and emotional purposes. But the lessons it explores are real, and they happen to people every single day. If this resonated with you, don't keep it to yourself. Someone in your life might need to hear it too.